I was one of the first guys in the United States to talk about what the true compliance costs were of this Internal Revenue Code. You can go back and look at my book, How to Fire the IRS, and I talk about the compliance costs in that book. Subsequent to the release of that book, the IRS's Office of the Taxpayer Advocate, this would have been in the late 90s, 8 to 10 years later, they started looking at what the compliance costs were. And they talk about the compliance burden being the time and money that taxpayers spend to comply with their tax filing responsibilities. And the time-related activities that they're talking about is record keeping, tax planning, gathering tax materials, learning about the tax law, completing the necessary forms, and submitting those forms to the IRS. These out-of-pocket costs are what they call the compliance burden. But there's something that the taxpayer advocate is missing. In all the studies we see of the compliance burden, there's an important part of the puzzle that is missing, and that is enforcement costs that are put on the shoulders of individual taxpayers. When somebody goes through a tax audit, they hire a tax professional to represent them. If they have to execute an appeal, they hire a tax professional to represent them. If somebody's dealing with IRS enforcement action, wage levies, bank levies, property seizures, tax liens, those types of, they hire a tax professional to represent them. If they have to negotiate an offer in compromise to settle their case, they generally hire a tax professional to represent them. But even if they do it themselves, all of the compiled by the taxpayer advocate in her calculation of the compliance burden do not take into account the costs that people incur in defending themselves from enforcement. All right. And even if you don't owe the IRS a dime, if you go through an audit and you have to go through an appeal and the United States tax court case and you end up owing the IRS $0, which happens regularly, you still have to bear the cost of defending yourself. None of this is taken into account in the calculation of the compliance costs.